Welcome back to the news, everybody. There's actually a ton to talk about this week. Really interesting things, cool new updates, little smidge of drama, but let's get it started with the Diablo event. It's called the Greedy Emissary, and it is live to celebrate the launch of Diablo 4, which will be in early access next Friday. I think that's for the people who buy, the more fancy edition, and then a few days later for everybody else. Till then, you can farm up things in WoW. And with this, you can get Bellular, which is this pet, a new hood and cloak, Diablo banner, a 36-slot bag, which is pretty damn powerful, the Tome of Town Portal, the 12-string guitar toy, Rit's various legs and weapons, and an offhand. There's a backpack as well, a polearm, a whole bunch really. Including Tyrael's Charger. Yes, Tyrael's Charger is back. Just after it was on the Blizzard store late last year for a limited time for $25, which does kind of feel kind of bad, right? It was sold in a time-limited way as an event, last chance to get it. And now it's a free reward 6 months later. I imagine that feels pretty bad to the people who bought that. At any rate, all this stuff is for going to these portals and blasting through the treasure goblins that spawn from them. You can keep grinding these to a degree. However, you should know that your first kill on your entire Battle.net account per day has a significantly higher drop rate for the bag and the Tyrael's Charger mount. We don't know anything else past that. I would certainly imagine, though, that with this being a one-time thing, an yearly holiday, that they'll probably balance this out so that people actually do get the rewards. Certainly, maybe if they mixed in a currency that you got for every single one, that would be a little bit safer. Anyway, the goblins do spawn every 30 minutes in a rotation that basically is Stormwind, then Dragon Isles, some zone there, then Orgrimmar, then a Dragon Isle zone, then Stormwind, Dragon Isles, Orgrimmar, Dragon Isles, and it keeps on going. And there's even a handy weak aura that we'll have linked down below that'll let you track it in-game. Now, as for the XP boost that you probably heard of, it will come right after the event ends, bringing a 50% boost from June the 15th to the 12th of July, which is going to be pretty damn sweet. Speaking of boosts, a massive thank you to our patrons for the boost that they give us. Hey, we got sick new loot coming in for May, so that's really nice. I finally fixed all the shipping problems. Everything is now shipped, which is very, very good. Patrons, there's a vlog in that, don't worry. Early access content. Vlogs, I do my weekly sort of Great Vault vlog where, an update on what's going on, me opening up my vault and my main, and all of that. Early access to videos. We've got 2 whole exclusive podcasts over there. Big chunky one on Neltharion, really diving into that character in depth, and an even chunkier one on the Emerald Dream, which is almost certainly where we'll be going. So, patrons, thank you for all the support. There's a bunch of real awesome content, including early stuff, unique stuff, and loot that will arrive. How cool. All right, links down below, of course. With that said, let's talk about rares, because Blizzard have hotfixed the Zaralek Elite rares. Instead of loot resetting daily, which to all of us suggested a big go kill every single rare every single day to get your Drake crests, that sort of style of play. Now they will reset only whenever content in their area becomes available. So, as an example, if a world quest spawns in an area, then the rares in that area will become active, and I suppose that's what will refresh their loot lockout. A bit bizarre. You can sort of see the point though. Basically, they're a bit less frequent, but they are more tied into the location of content that has already spawned, and they have their rewards being a bit increased to make up for that, with Blizzard basically saying that rares are supposed to be a bonus here. They're not supposed to be the main event like they were in the Forbidden Reach. Which I guess is fair enough. Maybe Blizzard just wants it to be the people by default kind of go do the public events, and every now and then, a rare shows up, and they go and do that. I suppose, as I said in this video that I think came out a few days ago, Zaralek did launch in a pretty bizarre way, and I think this patch, I was going to title the video initially something a little bit more spicy. I pulled the spice back. But for me, it was the idea that, it seems in the very broad community, the patch kind of flopped sentiment-wise, even though when I see all my friends, we're all absolutely loving the patch and having a great time. And I was trying to work out just what the hell was going on. Now, speaking of things going on that have just wrecked people, A simming error on third-party sites like RaidBots has caused quite the controversy this week because it mistakenly oversimmed the embellished slimy expulsion boots by around 1.5k DPS, causing many people to craft them using their limited spark, and when it hit people that it was not good, I'm sure they had a bit of a slimy expulsion of their own. Now, this is purely a community issue. It's nothing to do with Blizzard. They didn't cause any of this, so it's not really on Blizzard to do anything to rectify it. It's just a tool was wrong that everyone happens to use. It's an odd situation, but it is one that called up a lot of people wanting some sort of in-between to, between today's sort of zero spark refund policy, or perhaps some sort of protection against mistakes, or maybe Blizzard having to change up their tuning. Okay, next, a bit in tuning. Our first week of Tyrannical and Mythic Plus yielded a lot of tuning changes. As a healer, many of them I appreciate greatly. This week we've got a few more. There's the Quaking Totem on the second boss of Uldaman, and the Sky Nova ads in Vortex Pinnacle have had their health reduced by 20 and 10% respectively, which will hopefully ease up some of those damage requirements on Tyrannical. Then, the duration of Forge Master's Blazing Aegis is down to 4 seconds from 6, so if you're on higher key, maybe you'll clench just slightly less. There is one odd thing to call out though. So, this week's affixes have not been a fun combo, and not really because they've ruined your life or anything, it's just because they're a bit annoying. Right, Incorporeal and Spiteful, they don't really interact well, so Incorporeal basically has these ads that spawn in on a timer. That timer ticks on while you're in combat. But of course, what does Spiteful do at the end of a pack of mobs? It spawns the Spiteful mobs, and that keeps you in combat much longer. It's not some sort of crazy game-breaking problem, but it is frustrating sludge nonetheless, and I suppose it is sludge that you have to wade through, and wading through it does cost you a bit of time. Okay, next up then. Story! Yes, the narrative has happened. First up, a quick PSA. Go do Caligos' quest in Valdrakken. Go to him, accept his quest, do the quest line, because the Blue Dragon quest line is basically incredible. The team have outdone themselves. It is perfect side content, apart from a few bugs, like if Lanagosa disappears on you, then fly back to Dalaran and then back to where you were, or at least go very far away, and the zone will like reload and it'll work. But as a piece of content, it is peak questing. I'm not going to say anything else than that. If you liked the Blue Dragon stuff in Legion, you should extremely do this, and go back to the Ossuary when, when you're done too. And also check your mail. 10 out of 10 quest team, you nailed it with this. As for the main campaign, I have notes. It works in a very limited and specific fashion, but I think, as a part of the sort of A-plot of the whole expansion, it does quite a bad job of conveying, well, the story of Dragonflight. Here's a good example. You know the Echo of Neltharion? Now let me know if this is a surprise to you or not. Did you know that it's actually a faceless one when you look at its corpse? So, through the whole raid, Rathian and Abyssian are being talked to by a faceless one. That faceless one is probably the person responsible for all those crazy whispers that, that kind of drove our Black Dragon friends, well, especially the younger two, a little bit bonkers while they were going through all of that questing. Yet, even though we defeat this faceless one, and when you look at the corpse of the Echo of Neltharion, you see a faceless one, nobody in the campaign actually talks about that at all. And the same goes for the cosmic void insanity at the heart of Aberrus. And while Alex Straza is saying her very generic speech about unity and peace, making you feel all very nice and making a player feel, oh, all's well, we won the campaign. Canonically, Farak is Farak is just over the mountains torching the Azure Span. So, while the intimate character work is good in isolation, they have done a fairly poor job at A, showing rather than telling, which is still a bit ropey, and so much of their script, even within that context, is just retreading the same ground, especially the cutscenes, and then B, having their story meet players where their players actually are at from having played the game and paying attention to the things that the quest designers and the environment team put into the world. It's very strange, and my general theory, my general theory is that a lot of this must have been done in isolation. right? Maybe people not talking to each other, production schedules being what they are, or at the very least in quite a rush. The stuff that's there is fine, but there's no pumping a plot spectacle to get players excited or to convey that Warcraft is a place where epic events happen. And that is something that has really been a pillar of this IP's growth, really from like Warcraft 3 onwards. Worth thinking about. Anyway, as for the game, expect time stuff soon, expect Emerald Dream stuff after the time stuff, and expect for Farak to be dealt with at some point, likely patch 10.1.7. Maybe there we will defeat a shadow-flamed up Farak, but in the process, maybe Veranoth will get to do something related to that world tree, thus taking us into patch 10.2. Now, this is content, at least the campaign part, that LFR players will not be able to play for another few weeks because Sarkarath LFR opens up June 19th, which is quite a wait. Now, if Blizzard are doing that just to eke out a little bit more sub, I would say that I would worry how many regular players would just drop off the game, having never actually seen the end of the story, while they're just waiting for Sarkarath for an arbitrary amount of time. So, to me, it seems like rather a self-defeating policy. Okay, with all that covered, let's talk about some stuff going on in live right now. First up, it's almost the end of the month, which does mean it's almost the end of our Patreon, but also, our Patreon for this month, for the loot, but also, it's time to get your Trading Post tendies. Okay, so get your Trader's Tender. Next then, it's Cataclysm Timewalking, and this time it's special. The Firelands Raid drops eye-level 415 Champion Track gear. That means the Firelands gear is pretty much as good as like Aberrus normal, ish. It was recently tuned down, I imagine, just because it was too powerful or something. But anyway, it can be upgraded all the way up to item level 437. So go and do the Firelands. Get geared, it's pretty sweet. And I really love how this system makes content like, that older stuff, like these older raids, actually more relevant to us. So I'm really hoping that Throne of Thunder gets added soon. It's one of my favorite raids. I know it's one of Ian's favorite raids. And he did suggest that it is very much on the cards to be added to Timewalking. That would be sweet. That would be a good night or two of raiding for us. Now, the regular quest, of course, for just doing the 5 Timewalking dungeons, also gets you a bit of 415. And then finally, for LFR, Wing 2 is out. Skarn and Rashok both drop tier. Rashok drops Jaroon, which is pretty awesome, and an amazing healer trinket, which I at least got from a normal reclear, which is very happy about. And Assault of the Zakali's Chaos Grapnel trinket is actually pretty strong for many DPS. If you normally do LFR, by the way, I would say definitely try normal. It's real approachable this time around, and I think you'll have more success than you found in the past. Okay, let's talk about the PTR, the new game updates for patch 10.1.5. Old World Dragon Riding is not fully back. It is going to be a time-limited event, but also in the form of content. An absolute ton of races have been data mined across Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor, and even Outland. Then there's the new Kalimdor Cup event that is testable on PTR. This will be one of those recurring events, right, that you just see in your calendar that are very regular. There will be 16 races on normal, advanced, and reversed. Now, doing these gets you Riders of Azeroth badges, and these can be handed in with Mazthra for basically a whole bunch of cosmetic rewards. Right now, there's a pretty cool looking, sort of like racing-themed transmog collection and a Drake customization. Hopefully more get added there. And I think it's pretty sweet. Like, okay, we probably know they're testing all this stuff for the next expansion, but being realistic, they probably don't have all the animations that they would need to actually allow for this new style of flying across WoW's humongous number of mounts. So if they're working on it and they found a way to just ship that as a thing for us to do, then that's pretty sweet. And also staying in dragon riding, and thanks to Keyboard Turn and Twitter, we have seen a new dragon riding Drake type called Companion Drake Netherwing Teal. Or at least that's like the file name. So what does this mean? Could our drakes be companions? It would be pretty cool if the, shiny new dragons that we've been riding around on all expansion could perhaps fight with us or something. So I don't really know. Of course, Netherwing being there is also pretty big. If you joined, as an example, during the Burning Crusades big surge of players, then the Netherwing drakes, those were one of the top things to get in the game, a mark of a dedicated player to a newbie. So getting those as dragon riding would be, pretty sweet. Okay, the return to Scholomance. This is kind of cool. 10.1.5 is bringing back some cool old Naxxramas crafts and recipes, just like the Zul'Gurub stuff of patch 10.0.7, which was really cool, right? To just see them go back to that old vanilla content and actually make it be a bit relevant. I think that's beautiful. Well, guess what? Recent data mining hints that we may be getting a nostalgic trip to the original Scholomance. Yes, not the revamped one. There's fresh stuff in the criteria tree database tied to unlocking Scholomance under the title Naxxramas Restoration and a brand new achievement to boot, Leaders of Scholomance. You can nab this by taking down Dark Master Gandling and Kirtonos the Herald. But there's a bit of a kicker here because the bosses that you're up against, their actual like IDs are the same as the vanilla versions, not the revamped ones from Mists of Pandaria. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of revamps, we don't have solid details on this yet, but there is a juicy bit of data from the miners, and that's a new map entry that is titled 10.1.5 Scarlet Monastery Headless Horseman Revamp, which pretty much means it sounds like one of our favorite spooky bosses, the Headless Horseman, may be getting a bit of a makeover. Again, if you think about the roadmap, it was referencing holiday updates, so I'm pretty damn sure that they'll be doing something here. Hopefully they'll counter the more annoying RNG. I know many people do want the Headless Horseman mount, or maybe a new one, and maybe they'll add some new gameplay to this. To be honest, when I look at the more end-of-year events, I mean, you've got Brewfest, Hallow's End, Winter's Veil. Those are pretty big, pretty chunky, so if actual, like, proper substantive content was added to them, that would, I mean, that would be a real nice boost for the game. Okay, next then, the Revival Catalyst. It is actually on the 10.1.5 PTR right now, and we've got some fresh info with how it's going to be basically meshing with the new gear upgrade system. Simply put, you can only catalyze gear on the Veteran or higher upgrade track, and they have boosted the maximum charges from 6 up to 8. Now, this will drop in 3 weeks, so that means look in your bags and hold on to anything that could turn into tier gear, especially because sockets and tertiary stats will persist post-conversion. And also, if you happen to find yourself wanting to use Season 1 gear in the Catalyst for transmog purposes, you can actually go ahead and do that. It won't cost you any charges, so if you're mog farming, it's really good for that too. And next, because there's even more, our probably next mid-tier power boost is here, and it is called Paracausal Fragments. These actually are a family of trinkets that almost certainly are going to be dropping from the new Mega Dungeon, and they've got some pretty neat effects. One of them is like a 5-hit combo that can proc from Shamalain / Doomhammer. It's like an Alliance Horde version, because, you know, obvious reasons. There's one that will allow you, I think it's Frostmourne actually, it lets you transform into a Lich. Right, on a cooldown using like souls that the trinket stores up from nearby ally and enemy deaths. So that's really cool. There's a sulfurous one that, you know, causes like a bunch of fire damage to enemies. Just kind of cool things. And I suppose these are a little bit like the Onyx Amulet, right? They let the designers play around with some new ideas. They just get to make cool bits of gear. It gives people a little bit of a power boost mid-tier when, you know, all the competitive stuff is kind of said and done. They just keep things in the game fresh and spicy. I think that's no bad thing. Plus, having a more unique feeling family of trinkets be tied to the new Mega Dungeon will certainly help it stand out. And speaking of which, the Mega Dungeon. This is small, but maps for the Mega Dungeon have been data mined, and it does seem like it's formatted as a big old romp through time. I think the art of the main map is gorgeous. I may be wondering if, like, Wing 1 is the non-Galakrond area stuff. Maybe Wing 2 is the more, like, Galakrond or Ridicron sort of big drama. Who knows exactly. But it kind of looks like you're maybe working your way left to right through that big map. Anyhow, I'm dead excited for this personally. I mean, its release is going to time quite nicely with me moving over to a prot Paladin, which is going to be after we've, you know, got ahead of the curve in Sarkareth. And broadly speaking, dungeon content, you know, it's been so revitalized for me. And I think within the context of this new gear upgrading system, there's, I think, a far higher chance that the loot that we'll get from this Mega Dungeon in its initial release will actually be, you know, relevant to us. And I suppose speaking of time stuff, they are also clearly having fun with a new time rift feature that's coming in 10.1.5.2. We've got Varisa, Windrunner, Banshee Queen, Thessarian, Hand of the King, and Uther the Deathbringer. Basically, there's plenty of references to the alternate universe Hearthstone sort of Azeroth stuff that they've been doing. And broadly, like looking at these sort of Time Rift bits of content, they look pretty cool, right? I mean, it's like even take those Legion portals that you did, you know, in the Argus patch, right? 7.3. You know, even though they were a little bit more simple, you just kill some boys, kill a boss, or whatever it would be for that zone, there's a degree of fantasy. You know, it's not just the little bits of gameplay you're doing, it's also the broader context, the fantasy, the visuals, and these seem to be giving really exactly what I would want, being a mixture of like group and solo objectives where you seemingly come together, defeat a boss, something like that, close the Time Rift, and ideally get some pretty cool loot. Yeah, their content pace is absolutely crazy. And the next thing is probably something that people think is pretty damn crazy too, because it is that WoW token is now available in World of Warcraft Classic Wrath of the Lich King. Look, it's a simple enough situation. On the side who are very bullish for this, they are going to be saying, RMT is happening absolutely everywhere. We've got EPGP runs that are all over the place. Right now, the only way for people to engage with this stuff is RMT. May as well just let them do it properly, let people get gold, because, hey, ain't got no time for that bullshit. I will swipe with my wallet. So there's a category there. The other side of things, the other category, is basically saying, but this was added in WoD, not Wrath. So you're violating the sort of classic vision, you're violating some of those principles. They would also say, hey, the point of this MMO is that we all come here equal. Now, in the past, yes, RMT happened, but I think one of the things that's changed a little bit is how much gold runs have become deeply ingrained in the culture. Now, I remember in Wrath of the Lich King, gold runs happening. I think they were called EPGP. Right, the idea, you know, people bid in the gear, all that money goes into a pool, the pool is distributed to people, so for the people who don't get gear, they do get some gold, and it's just a way of paying, or playing. It's also a way of paying, because it does mean that if you're coming there as a high bankroll player, you can just snap up a bunch of items. So if that's going to be taking a bit more prominence, then obviously with WoW Token, people could be, you know, seeing this for what it is, perhaps, which is for every WoW token sold, because every WoW token, remember, does eventually turn into 30 days of game time. For that 30 days of game time, Blizzard gets paid about $5 more, right? It basically increases the average, you know, price of a month of WoW by 25%. And that is why, as a business model, it is very smart for them to do. Now, this is not a model that they pioneered. This has been done by other MMOs. WildStar did it. They called it Cred before that. And I believe the original MMO to kick this off was actually EVE Online. Just that in EVE, the pilot license extension, which is the actual item, well, it would just be in the hold of your spaceship. And I know there are stories of people just having hundreds, thousands of dollars worth of Plex in the hold of their spaceship, when someone just fucking kills them, and it just goes boom. EVE Online is a crazy place. But anyway, that is it for the World of Warcraft news this week. Right now, I am personally having an absolutely fantastic time in the game. If you would like some early access to content, some of my the vlog that I do every week, as well as other behind the scenes from me, podcasts from me, Matt, also from Matt and Jared, you can check all of that out. And of course, the loot. Because, hey, loot, we got loot goblins in the game. Loot everywhere, everyone loves loot. Of course, loot is from our art team, who make, who made the Pale Beyond, and who are making other things right now. I won't be able to talk about those for a long-ass time, so I won't tease you too much. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Catch you next time.